one of the really interesting things about many of the modern houses that people aren't aware of is the fact that architects were quite conscious in those days, just like back in the colonial times, of north and south, because you're trying to welcome in the sun and the heat on the south side of the house and keep it out on the north side. And you know, winter winds can be really brutal, so you might want to have a solid north side to your house. And so a site like this that Goodell ended up building on was really terrific because the street is on the north side of the house. You're coming in up from that, and then you have this total surprise of this landscape out beyond. But it's not just the surprise of the landscape, it's also the sun. So you're kind of following the sun and coming to the sun, and it's a terrific kind of partie for an architectural design, that you're going from the cold, dark side of the house to the warm, bright side of the house.
And can you talk about the stone itself, where it comes from, maybe?
It's an Indian marble, and that was kind of a nice coincidence because Mike was actually traveling regularly to India on business at that point, and so it had a connection. And clearly it was all the different readings that you can get looking at this. Sometimes it looks like a topographic map, you know, an aerial photograph, but in a season like this, you see it as a tangle of tree branches, just like we see out the window.
Right. That's really nice. And then it really works well with the corner style fireplace, which you said kind of ties into the architecture as well, right?
Well, exactly. The historic house had corner windows. We put a new one in here, but it's emulating what was already in the existing house. And of course, that's a fundamental tenet of modernism, that you're trying to open up the space, and by kind of dematerializing the corner, which is where you traditionally expected to have a solid enclosure, it emphasized that this was the modern world, and you could have that as open and kind of be contrary to what the expectations are. And so since we had the corner window right here, having the corner fireplace was a way to sort of say this is the same as the architecture. You know, we're opening up the corner. We don't have to have the enclosure where you expect it. You don't have to have a fire that's enclosed in a box. You can take away a side of it.
With the fireplace being such a focal point, what are some of the things that you look for in a fireplace, maybe even specific to this space?
Well, in this one, clearly from just looking at this, you can see we wanted to keep it really clean. And so the idea that the stone could be overlapping the metal. We don't have unnecessary trim pieces. You know, the bottom piece is just flush, the side pieces are flush, and then you see the back box. So it's as clean as a solution could be, because this very abstract idea of taking a piece of stone from floor to ceiling, wrapping it around the corner like this, was that you don't want to start seeing trim pieces and other details that compromise the abstract quality of that. It's really like a huge abstract expressionist painting. And so being able to have a really minimal design for the fireplace, where we don't get lots of kind of gimmicky trim pieces on the sides and cover panels and those sorts of things, made it possible to kind of achieve this vision. We ended up using reclaimed lumber. We had siding that was milled from a variety of types of reclaimed lumber, and treated at different widths, different thicknesses, and different size boards, so that it has a very kind of corrugated look to it. It's sort of rough, almost a corduroy look to it, really. And is natural wood, so you see grain and you see variety from board to board. And so it has almost an unfinished quality. And that roughness was a way to contrast the smoothness of the original international style house. And so while we emulated that in terms of its massing and in terms of its windows, by having this wood siding that was irregular and rough, we were able to actually make the old house look better and make it look more modern in a sense, even smoother and tauter as a surface than it was. And then we could have our house that was mimicking the old house in some respects, or reflecting the old house in its massing and its windows, fenestration, but then it could have its own identity through the siding.